Hello and welcome to the Righteous Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ray Charles, coming at you today with part 1 of 3. This is going to be a 3-part series entitled Loneliness in Leadership. Now, COVID-19 certainly has caused isolation all across the globe, but isolation, ladies and gentlemen, does not necessarily have to equate to loneliness. Hence, this 3-part series entitled Loneliness in Leadership. Enjoy part 1 of 3.
So today's topic is about leaders operating in isolation, and this is a counterproductive approach to follow for senior leaders.
Sure.
There are many senior community leaders, business leaders, political leaders, and so on and so forth. And the first question we should ask about is, why should we care about leaders operating in isolation? Why we should care about leaders being lonely?
Sure. You know, Dr. Askett, the basic metric of leadership is followership. The size of your followership is a measure of your leadership. So if you're defining yourself as a CEO, you're defining yourself as a pastor, or whatever leadership title, and you look back and there's no one following you, then
you're not a leader.
That's questionable. So when you operate in isolation, that goes totally against the whole concept of leadership.
How do you make of people's comment who says that one of the prices of leadership is loneliness?
That's true to a certain degree. And I would just change the word loneliness to being alone. And I'll share what I mean by that in a second. You see, there is leader development, and then there is leadership development. Oftentimes when you go to the bookstore and you see books on leadership, well, 95% of those books are really talking about leader development. These are things that you do alone, where you do some introspection. You know, am I humble enough? Do I have the right leadership trait? The leadership person.
Character?
Do I have character? These are things that you do alone in your quiet time. But leadership development is all about enrolling. It's all about engaging your stakeholders for the fulfillment of a common goal. So you cannot execute leadership in a place of loneliness or being alone. So I think that distinction has to be made, because, and I've done a study on this, a lot of the books in the bookstore that says leadership is really talking about leader development.
So I know, some leadership experts, they argue that when you are at the top, you are lonely, and it feels like you are alone. But obviously, some leadership experts like Dr. John Maxwell, he argues that that's not the best way to be a leader, to be on the top and lonely, because some of the arguments people make it that if you are very close to your people, they may not respect you, they may undermine you, or they may not see the difference between themselves and you, so you want to always keep the distance so that you better lead them and successfully takes them somewhere.
Yes.
Is that argument holds any water?
I disagree. And I have a lot of respect for Dr. Maxwell. But this is where I disagree. I believe that you wholeheartedly, as a leader, ought to be touchable, ought to be close to your employees, ought to share some of your vulnerabilities, ought to share some of the areas that you aren't knowledgeable in. So what that does, it makes you human. There's a principle in management called the RACI principle. That's RACI, where R stands for what are the roles for your flock? What are the roles for your tribe? The A is who is accountable. The C is who should be consulted. And the I is who should be informed. on a particular issue. Well, if you as a leader want to stay back and have a distance and feel like you have to have all the answers on a particular issue, you're really cutting yourself short on the potential and the creativity within your organization, because there's some folks that may want to step up to the plate and say, you know what, I'll be responsible, or I'll be accountable. So just applying, and there are lots of models, but I like the Raki model because it allows you to say, you know what, I need someone here to help me turn this computer on.
Yeah.
So just being human, and you being human introduces humanization into the organization.
I like that. By the way, maybe I misled you, because Dr. John C. Maxwell, he agrees with you. He says that you have to be closer to your people.
Gotcha.
And you should not be afraid of being closer to your people. He disagrees with leaders who are thinking that being alone or being separate from their people is important for them to lead effectively. But there may be some occasions where you may need to be alone.
Yes.
In the past, we have seen leaders finding themselves in a very hard place where there may be, their voters against them, their advisors maybe against them. Go back and see in history, for example, you'll find some, great leaders left behind, forsaken or even rejected by their followers and their people. So in these kind of situations, I think you need to stand for the thing that you believe and be ready to die for that something that you have believed, even if people are not following you, even if you are left alone.
Exactly, and I agree wholeheartedly. One of my sayings is, as a leader, oftentimes you're the go-to person. Your stakeholders are going to you, your employees are going to you, your vendors are going to you, your peers may be going to you. But who does the go-to person go to?
Interesting.
In their time of need. So I agree 100% that there are situations where you need to be alone, but at the same time you also need to find that safe space where you can vet this FUD, if you will. And I'm sure you're familiar with FUD, that acronym: fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It's all going through your mind, and you don't necessarily want to share that fear, that uncertainty, and doubt
to the people you lead.
To the people you lead.
Maybe you need to shield them or protect them from that kind of.
And that's leadership.
Feelings.
And that's leadership. So you find that safe landing space, that safe environment where you can share. Sometimes it may come with a mentor one-on-one. It may come with a business coach, or sometimes it may come with a peer advisory group.
But even those leaders who are facing difficult times and alone, they should find ways to go to their peers or people who may support them, help them, and pass through that challenge. They don't need to really be alone.
No, they don't. And a lot of times they don't engage in those types of environments simply because they don't know it exists. It's not that they don't want to. So I see almost like a movement. I see a movement of peer-to-peer advisory, leadership advisory groups that are rising all across the globe, where peers can take off their mask, if you will, take off that Superman cape, if you will, and just be totally vulnerable. One of the greatest fears, Dr. Askett, of a leader is not wanting to share with their direct reports that, I really don't know what I'm doing. So
that's humility.
That's it. It's humility.
People appreciate that. Your people appreciate that. They don't consider you as dumb because they know you reach that level because you are intelligent. You reach that level because you are smart, wise. They know that. So if once in a while, when you face something that you don't know or something that you can't handle alone, what's the big deal if you tell to your people that you don't know or you need their help?
Sure. It's that lack of knowledge, if you will, on the execution of a task or a tactic. But when it comes to a strategy, if you want to roll out a certain bonus structure and you're not sure whether you want to roll it out via top line or bottom line profits, these are some things that you may not necessarily want to share with your employees. You may want to vet this with a peer who have gone down that path before. But as it pertains to tactics on executing a task, you know what? I don't really know how to operate this machine. Is there someone at our team can show me how to do this? As a CEO, that humility,
exactly,
I believe, should be brought forth.
Because nobody is perfect. Nobody could be able to do everything by himself or herself.
Absolutely.
Finding people who can, back up our weaknesses, find people who could be able to complement is one of the key skills of leadership.
Absolutely.
By the way, I just want to know what are some of the reasons or why leaders prefer to operate alone. Let's see some of the reasons. Why, some people who are, some leaders who are operating in isolation. Why do you think they should operate in isolation? Are there any justifiable reasons?
Yeah, there are lots, but I'll list about three. And if we can just picture for a second a triangle where the base is vision, then the second segment is differentiation, and the third level is revenue. A leader who has that vision for the company and is looking at what I want and what I got, and there's a gap there between I want and I got, that's probably the location of the greatest pain, because it's the vision that gives birth to this company. And so that feeling of failure tries to come in and set in. Then when you elevate from the vision, the differentiation, the whole reason you started this company is to have that unique selling proposition, to be unique from your competitors, but you find yourself in a place where you're not unique. And again, that feeling of failure tries to come in. And the one that we all talked about, the one that we all see on the newspaper, the one that we all hear on the Wall Street Journal, etc., is the revenue. But I see that as more surface. The core reason that I believe leaders go into isolation is when they look at that delta between what I want and what I got in terms of my vision. And so it's a little hard to share that delta from a vision casting perspective with your employees. Because guess what? The whole reason that they are employees is that they have bought into the vision during the interviewing process. So having that safe space again as a CEO to share with your peers and say, you know what? I started this company, this was my vision, this is what I wanted, but this is what I got here. I need help. That's a reason why you may not necessarily want to share that within the confines of the company, but to find that safe space to share that.
I would like to share one data from Harvard Business Review, which was posted on its website. It says that half of CEOs report experiencing feelings of loneliness in their role. And of this group, 61% believe it hinders their performance. First-time CEOs are particularly susceptible to this isolation. Nearly 70% of first-time CEOs who experience loneliness report that the feelings negatively affect their performance. It's a huge data. Half of the CEOs feel that they feel lonely, especially the first-time CEOs, the first-time top executives. They feel more lonely compared to experienced CEOs. So having that kind of, high caliber position of leadership brings that kind of price into their life. And it is common in the world that top leaders are experiencing loneliness.
If you recall what we discussed at the very beginning of our show, the difference between leader development and leadership development. If our CEOs can just grab a hold, first of all, that there is a difference. The leader development is where you build up those leadership traits within you as an individual leader. Once you grab a hold of the concept of leadership, which really has its root in stakeholder engagement, not just delegating, but collaborating. There is a saying, Ubuntu, I am because you are. That, in my estimation, epitomizes leadership. The reason, and I've coached a number of CEOs, the reason they tend to go into that place of loneliness is because they believe that they are responsible for the execution of that initiative. I've heard it time and time again on a one-on-one and in groups.
So rather than collaborating, they feel that this is their responsibility. If it fails, it backfires on them, it reflects on them, and so on and so forth.
Right. And again, if we go back to the Rocky model, we're not going to go through the whole thing. I'm just going to look at two letters, the R and the A. The R is responsible. The A is accountable. If we make that shift from responsible to accountable, now your vision is now spread much wider to identify who are my allies, who are my stakeholders, who can I surround. You see, I want to surround myself with a lot of folks that are a lot smarter than I am, that can accentuate my places of weakness. But if you believe that you are responsible for the execution and the success of this particular initiative, then it narrows your perspective.
It leads you to loneliness.
And it leads to loneliness. So therein lies loneliness is the symptom. You see, we talk a lot of, the paper talks about the symptom. It doesn't talk about the root.
Root cause, yeah.
The root cause, number one, is a lack of distinction between leader development and leadership development. The root cause is a distinction between being responsible and being accountable.
What about other types of leaders? For example, yes, I understand that because of the lack of this understanding, some leaders may find themselves lonely. But what about some leaders thinking that, okay, if I open up, if I bring people closer to me, they may know the secret of the trade, they know what I know, and then I will become irrelevant. So it's better if I isolate myself away. And also, some people may think, some leaders may think, hey, if I fellowship with others, of course, if a leader is smarter, that's how he does. Like you said, I bring people who are smarter than I am. But for some people, bringing smarter people closer to them may mean that they compete with them. And they don't have maybe the confidence, the security that they can't really compete with this kind of smart people. So what about this kind of leaders who think that bringing people closer to them makes them vulnerable, makes them less competitive?
There's a great book out there. it's called Blue Ocean Strategy. And it talks about the red ocean and the blue ocean. And without going into too much detail because our time is limited, the red ocean looks at someone as a competitor, and I have to hide and I have to protect myself. I think that's what you're referring to, that type of leader.
I have to hide, I have to be alone.
Yeah.
I should not share my secrets. I should not share my competitive advantage, because if people know about them, then I will become irrelevant. Of course, this is faulty. I don't believe in that kind of approach.
Sure. The blue ocean perspective says, okay, I do have my trade secrets patented or copywritten. Why not share? And that, what about the possibility of that being a competitive advantage? Maybe that opens a door for Ubuntu. Maybe that opens a door for collaboration. There's in the 80s, there was a word that came out in the business world called co-optation. It's a clip between collaboration and competition. I think co-opetition is more of the other mindset, where it's more of a possibility mindset. The protecting and guarding yourself against being hurt by a potential competitor, in my estimation, is a limited mindset. Now, you notice I said, once you have your trademark, you have to do your risk management. You have to protect yourself. But once you've done that, why not share it? Why not share it? Because at the end of the day, it's beyond our company. It's our environment. It's the investment. My mantra is keep investing in people. Don't just keep investing in your employees. Keep investing in people. Invest in your employees. Invest in your community. And maybe that neighbor in business that is a quote-unquote competitor, they may partner, which is another synonym for the collaboration, which is of the same family of Ubuntu. See, that's a whole nother mindset. And we sort of have to break out of that, because that is more in line with what leadership development. I keep coming back to that. That whole partnership, that whole cooperation, that whole collaboration is more in line with leadership stakeholder engagement paradigm versus leader development paradigm. Leader development says I have to protect myself. So it's very limited.
Yeah, by the way, I believe that when somebody protects himself from other people, protects his ideas, inventions, and so on, yes, in a certain degree, yes, that's very important. You have to register your patent, you have to keep your trademark, and so on. But protecting your message, protecting your comparative advantage is a disadvantage, and it's a disservice to you, to your organization. Think about it. Think about it. For example, I may protect myself. Let's say I'm a seed. I protect myself. Yes, I can remain there as one seed.
Yes.
But think about it. If I sow myself, if I die,
come on,
I can reproduce thousands of other seeds. Yes. I can be one tree, protect myself, or release my seeds and become a forest. So this is a choice. For me, if people, when they release themselves, when they sow themselves into other people, into their communities, into their organizations, by becoming selfless, for me, they are doing a service to themselves and a service to their organization. They can take themselves to the next high. They can explode and reach the world when they share. But if they become, self is a universal law. You can't really become something significant. You can't leave legacy. You can't impact beyond yourself if you keep and protect yourself and remain alone.